Hey everyone, hope you guys are having a good day, evening, night, whenever you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this. I do have TikTok showing the screen today, so if you are listening to this on TikTok, it's going to be a little bit delayed. Just to let y'all know, you can hop over to YouTube if you want. We have a lot to talk about. They released, like, not even 30, 45 minutes ago, the divorce documents for Mica Miller, and there was something very interesting. In fact, so interesting that I couldn't even contain it. I had to make a video on TikTok right away, which I uploaded, of course, on YouTube, Instagram, etc. And I will also go ahead and say now that I did post those divorce documents. It's about 10 pages, including the fact that JP was served. Those are all on my Instagram, which is the same name on here, Justin on TikTok. Now, without further ado, you guys know how I have to do this. I got to pay the bills, right? So let's start talking about a couple things here. So first, a lot of y'all know that I have a podcast. I've gotten so much better at taking these episodes and rolling them over to the podcast, which is called 50 Words for Murder, which is available anywhere you're going to be listening to podcasts. But if you go to justinontiktok.com, it'll take you to Spotify and you can follow it there, but it's Apple, Google, iHeart, anywhere. But basically, I'm taking the audio of this and some of the other interviews that we do, and we put it there so you can take it on the go when you're in the car, you're sitting in traffic, and you can't sit and watch it on, YouTube. It's just another avenue to go over there. The other things I want to talk about are the books still. So I've written 2 books, as a lot of y'all know. The first one is Boundaries, which if you are part of the 26% of millennials and Gen Z that are no contact with a family member, well, actually, that's 26% is actually for parents, but higher with family members. This book is a way to explain to your children why you're no contact in a way that doesn't vilify them, but also in a way that teaches them the importance of having boundaries and respect within the family. Now, this book is still on sale until I'm going to leave it on until Wednesday on TikTok Shop, but you can order it through Justin on TikTok.com or through the TikTok Shop, and both copies, whether you order from my site or TikTok Shop, they will come signed, but I'm taking them off sale. Wednesday is going to be the last day that they are on sale price, and that's for that one and for Surprises Are Okay, Secrets Are Not, the second book that I've written. This one I actually don't have that many left. I'm going to have to order a whole lot more because y'all have been selling me out of this one, which is fantastic. But this book, if you are a parent, it's another one of those tools that you should have in your arsenal. Every parent should have this tool because it teaches your children. One is that they shouldn't necessarily keep secrets. Surprises have end dates. So surprises are okay. Like, for example, my daughter, when my wife and her went for my birthday, which was on the 19th, went to go get me a present. They didn't say, hey, this is a secret, this is a surprise. Like, don't tell daddy it's a surprise, because a surprise has an end date. In this case, it was on my birthday. That was the end date. This book also teaches that kids should not be keeping secrets for adults. It's one of the most important lessons we can have, and this came out from cases like Audrey Cunningham and Madeline Soto and other cases that are like that. I never want to be doing a video on somebody's child, and the goal of this book is to help prevent more kids from experiencing the abuse and knowing that they can use their voice, they can tell a trusted grown-up, and that they will be believed. That is the purpose of this. And again, both books on sale, TikTok Shop, or just on TikTok.com. And yeah, purchase them, sign them, we'll get them out. Anyways, without further ado, let's talk about what you guys want to talk about today, which is Mica Miller and all the updates that are going on with this case right now. So, last thing too, real quick that I have to say, 'cause I forget some stuff, ADD. If you are new here, first time on this YouTube, or even if you're watching on TikTok or listening on podcasts, wherever you are hearing this audio at this point in time or seeing it, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, something so that, we can help build the channels, and that does me a tremendous favor, and I would definitely appreciate you for that. So there's a lot of things that I want to talk about the divorce. Before I do, there are a couple other things that I want to chat about, because I think that there are a couple segues here that lead into the divorce. So the first thing I want to talk about is the state of Solid Rock Church and JP Miller. Because remember, this is a guy who tried to get spousal support from Mica, okay? So here's some stats for you real quick. So Solid Rock Ministries in Myrtle Beach has a multi-million-dollar portfolio and owns 4 properties, with a total taxable value of $5.59, so basically $5.6 million. This church has been tax exempt since 2015, according to the IRS filing. So they have $5.9 million. They have several properties. We know that there's 29 cars registered to the church. We know that there's a plane, or vehicles registered to the church. We know there's a plane registered to the church. All of it's tax-free. Now, the church also registered a 2007 Cessna SR22 with the FAA on May 9th after purchasing, notice the word purchasing, not donate. JP said that it's been donated, but purchased the plane for $430,000. Is basically what they're saying. Anyways, land records show that J.P. Miller's home address in Horry County is now owned by Solid Rock Ministries. He sold it, quote unquote, sold it to them in December of 2023, 2 months after Mica had initially filed for divorce back in October of 23, and then asked for the property to be split equally between them. So Mica had asked for the property to be split, part of the marital assets, and what's he do? Quickly moves it to the church. Not his house anymore. Now it's the church's. Now, I'm not gonna get into the whole thing about how the legal system works with this, but what I will tell you is that, typically speaking, in these cases, a judge, even a not very good judge, can be like, it's very evident what you were trying to do here. That we're not gonna put this. They're gonna basically put it back, restore the asset where it needs to be, and that's kind of how that typically goes. Now, filings by Sierra's lawyer, which is Mica's sister, accused JP of selling the property to the church for $169,000 and change, which they're arguing is significantly less than the true value of the property. In fact, tax records show that the taxable value of the property is $240,000, which is about $70,000 more than what he sold it for. In quotes again. But here's something that's interesting about taxable value. Typically speaking, not always, but in most places, everywhere that I've lived, which I've lived in, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, and Florida, but I didn't own a home in Florida. But every single house that I've lived in, that I've owned, the taxable income or taxable value of it is significantly less than the actual value of the home. So just keep that in mind. We talked about the plane already. They purchased that back in January of 2023. Now, since 2023, flight records showed that plane, which is a four-seater, has completed only 2 flights this year. One from Barrow County, Georgia, to Knoxville, Tennessee, and then that was in February, and then from Knoxville to Rocky Mount, North Carolina in April, and it really hasn't moved since. Court documents that were filed in Horry County Family Court show that Mica's sister Sierra is asking that the home Mica and him shared be restored back to the marital estate, which is what I was talking about a few minutes ago, and for Miller to provide proof that he did not try to hide money from Mica in the past 3 years. So that's going to take some forensic accounting, because let's be real, when you own a bar, you own churches, you're tax-free on all this, you're putting all your assets in the church's name, you know how to hide money and move money around so it makes you look like you don't have nearly as much. In her October filing, Mica requested the couple's assets be split equally. She contributed to the improvements of the home, which totaled about $90,000, and she asked for JP to pay her alimony as well as any legal fees incurred. And this was mostly in part because he made significantly more money than her. Which you'll see as we get into the divorce documents, he made more money than her. She was dependent on him for her finances. In fact, she worked for the church when she worked, so she was very much dependent on him for the finances. Now, the church also owns 3 additional properties and pieces of land, including the Faith First Academy School and a church building, a separate one on Howard Avenue, which is I think the one where they are. Records also show that the new church is worth $1.93 million, with the ministry also owning an additional 28.2 acres of land with a total value of $3.42 million, which was meant to be used to expand the school according to a sign that's nearby. Then in November of 22, an incident unfolded at a mental health facility, which we're going to talk about in a minute too. But I think before I get into the details of that, I'm looking at my notes here. Before I get into the details of this mental health facility, let me just pause here and let's go into the divorce documents, and we will circle back because it's additional text messages to get additional police reports. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And again, these documents, y'all, these are on my Instagram. If you want to go see it, it's just on TikTok. You can go through them. This page right here essentially is just, I have to make it a little bit bigger on my end from what y'all are seeing on the screen, but this right here basically is that he was served. That's the first document right here that we're looking at. So when we go here, this is where it starts. State of South Carolina, County of Horry, Mica Miller versus J.P. Miller. So what this is happening is basically, the first paragraph is them, presenting it to the judge, presenting it to the court. in the pleadings filed in this matter, and what they're wanting to do is they're asking for a judge to overlook a hearing to determine the following issues. One is the marital home, granting defendant continued use and possession of the marital home and the furnishings and contents, and requiring defendant. So basically, she's saying we're going to let JP continue to use the home, all the things in it, but just requiring JP to be solely responsible for making those timely payments as to the mortgage, utilities, insurance, tax, and other expenses associated with maintaining the household. She didn't want the house. She wanted him to take it. She's also asking for spousal support, saying that requiring defendant to pay spousal support, JP, through South Carolina State Disbursement Unit of a type and in an amount to be determined as appropriate and equitable by the court. Hey, not asking for a specific amount, let's let the court, that's pretty standard, let the court kind of determine, what's going on and how much they should have and all that kind of good stuff. The next one up was vehicles. So the vehicles, granting each party use and possession of their respective vehicles and requiring each to pay for all liens, taxes, maintenance, and insurance for the vehicle. So basically saying, we're going to get our own cars. We'll be responsible for our own cars. So far, everything that I've seen in this divorce decree, it's pretty normal, and it's really Mica showing that she doesn't want anything from this relationship. She just wants her car. She wants her stuff. He can keep the house. He can keep, everything that's there. She needs a little bit of spousal support to get going, but that's it. It's all pretty basic, pretty standard kind of stuff, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at that next part, Part D, personal property, okay? Granting plaintiff, meaning Mica, possession of her plunge ice bath. So she must have really liked this ice bath that he put in her obituary. Or maybe he did it because it was in the divorce documents. Her Apple AirPods, her Apple TV, her iPhone, her laptop, her Apple Watch, and her firearms. Now, we're going to pause here because there's a lot to talk about in this one small sentence, okay? So she wants her ice bath, her AirPods, her Apple TV, her phone, and her laptop, and her Apple Watch. She doesn't want very much. That is the personal property she is requesting. But her firearms. I read that, and I was like, huh. And if you looked at the video that I did before this on TikTok, what I kind of said about this with the firearms is that why did she need to go get a firearm from a pawn shop, a SIG, by the way, which is a firearm that you would probably use for more than a one-time use. You're not going to use that to, in my opinion, to take your life. With that firearm, there are much less expensive options, out there with this. But apparently she had them. So the only thing that I can think of with this is that he must have taken the firearms away from her. That's the only thing I can think of. But then we get to Part E, so let's talk about this. Here she's asking for a restraining order, and the next parts of this, like the longest part of this divorce decree, centers around a restraining order, okay? So basically with this right here, restraining defendant from sharing any photos, videos, or communications, including private and or provocative photos, because again, he had shared topless photos of her on Facebook, private and provocative videos, and or private and provocative communication of the plaintiff with any third party via social media, text message, or email, or any other means, whether it be directly, anonymously, or indirectly by way of any third party, basically. So she's saying, stop sharing private, personal information about us, any pictures that you took, any videos you took. Just don't do it, because he had already at that point done it. So she wants him to refrain from doing it. The next part is the property, restraining and enjoining defendant. So, restraining basically JP from disposing, encumbering, transferring, selling, hypothecating, pledging, destroying, or otherwise altering the status or value of any marital asset in the manner pending a final order of this court, further requiring JP to account for any and all marital and or non-marital assets which defendant has in any way depleted, liquidated, altered, transferred, encumbered since the parties separated on February 6, 2024, or anticipation thereof. Basically stating that, let me switch to the thing on this slide for you guys to see that. Basically stating that stop moving assets around. You're going to need to show the courts what you really have. Stop hiding stuff. Stop threatening to throw it away, give it to people, pledging it. Because, he could basically take, like, I'm going to pledge $1 million to the church, and that takes it out of the assets. So she's trying to basically prevent that at this point from here. Restraining order of debts as well. Restraining defendant from incurring any additional bills or obligations for services, property, or any other matter in the name of Mica and holding JP solely and exclusively responsible for any and all debts currently in the defendant JP's name, and hold Mica harmless on the same. Basically, because we've seen how JP is. We've seen so many documents at this point. And by the way, if you didn't catch last night's show, where we went through a ton of documents, court orders from JP's first wife, you'll see that this is very reminiscent. What we're going to see here, what we're going to see in a few other things, what she's asking for, and the reason why she's asking for this is because it's very reminiscent of what JP did to his first wife, Allison. And we went over all of those documents yesterday, including JP actually moving into a house across from hers so he could harass and stalk her, basically looking at her front door, which he did. Okay. She's also requesting, which is pretty standard, that, JP needs to pay any attorney's fees, suits, and or court costs that are incurred by them, and equitable relief, which is such, basically leaving it open for any other relief as far as the court may deem just and proper. And this was, by the way, on 4/15/24 when she did this. And she was served, I don't know if you guys saw back on the first one, she was served with this on the 25th, so 2 days, he was served 2 days before she died, okay? 2 days before she died. Now, before we go on to the next part of this, I just want to point out that this is a lot of work to put into this, to have the plan to just go ahead and take your life. And maybe I'm wrong on this, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just kind of pointing that out. Okay, so let's go to the next page on this. So this is basically for jurisdiction and venue, basically saying that they're looking for, they're basically looking for the venue. It's the complaint. It's saying that they have no kids, that that they're residents of Horry County, that they were married on November 7, 2017. I would really like to find the day that she was first, quote unquote, officially diagnosed, how close it was to that November 7th date. I'm just curious. If anybody knows that, shoot me an email with that information. And it talks about, we're just going to keep going on it. It's kind of just a cover page, basically. So this is the reasons why she's asking for what she's asking for. Okay, so we're going to start with number 13, basically saying during the entirety of this marriage, that Mica has been primarily dependent upon JP for financial support, and JP's contribution is necessary for Mica to be able to make ends meet. Again, she worked for the church. She worked for him. He was the primary breadwinner. They've got, the church has assets worth, a little over $5.5 million. So he makes more money. They own businesses. They own cars. There's a plane. He makes more money. The assets are more for her, and she worked for him. That, again, going into that, the number 14, that Mike has been an employee of JP's business for the majority of their marriage. So, again, another way that she relies on him. 15, Mike is unable to meet her current and ongoing financial needs, and therefore asks this court to order JP to pay plaintiff for separate maintenance and support. Given the disparity of incomes for the parties, JP's fault in the breakdown of the marriage, the lifestyle of the parties, and other relevant statutory and common law factors, Mica is informed and believes that she is entitled to and requests an order of this court requiring JP to pay alimony to her through the South Carolina State Disbursement Unit of a type and amount to be determined appropriate and equitable by the court. Further, Mica requests an order of this court permanently barring JP from any type of alimony, desires the same to be granted the plaintiff, etc. So, allegations contained are incorporated, fully, restated. Then that goes into talking about marital assets that have been accumulated during. This is all standard divorce stuff, right? So we'll kind of go through this pretty quick, but basically, they have stuff that came to be during the duration of their marriage. They have debts that came to be during the duration of their marriage. Mike is saying that she has contributed both directly and indirectly to the acquisition of marital property. She's informed and believes she's entitled to the court to basically make a decision determining the non-marital assets and debts, if any, and apportioning the marital assets and debts accordance with all the applicable law. Basically, she just wants what she's entitled to. That's basically it, And that's basically what this continues to go on. And again, I won't bore you guys with reading more and more court documents on this, but This gives the call of action. It doesn't give the reason that I saw in here. Maybe I missed it unless I was reading, but it didn't give the reason for their divorce, but we can assume infidelity. Very similar to probably what happened with the divorce with Allie. But again, for all of you guys, we'll just kind of go through them real quick. There's the last couple of pages on these for anybody who wants to pause and read it. But again, they are all on my Instagram for anybody who's interested in seeing that. So I do find a couple things, like I said, very interesting about that. One of the things that I find very interesting about that is the fact that she apparently had firearms, and the fact that she passed away 2 days after he was served. It doesn't make sense. And we are going to go through, because I have all the surveillance video, so we are going to go through all of that as well. I'm also going to show you kind of the area where she went, where she allegedly took her own life. And especially if you're a woman watching this, my wife, really brought this to my attention because I didn't see it. She was like, if you're a woman, it's very unlikely that this is the path you would have chosen for yourself. And when we get to that video, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But before we do, I kind of want to talk about something before I show you guys the orders. But I started to talk about this before at the beginning of this, but now I kind of want to get back to this because I think it's a good segue into everything else we're about to talk about. But back in November of 2022, an incident unfolded at Waccamaw Mental Health Facility, which involved Mica. Police were summoned due to Mica being trapped in a bathroom there, and once the police arrived, they discovered that Mica was in a truck with her husband, J.P. Miller, and he appeared intent on removing her, taking her away from there. He was also adamantly obstructing any communication between Mica and the officers. Basically, any time that the officers would try to speak with Mica, he would interrupt, he would interject, and he would try to answer for her, not letting her speak to them. There were also concerns amongst the facility staff regarding Mica's well-being. They observed her appearing weak, as well as 2 incidents where she actually lost consciousness. She passed out, which raised suspicions of potential substance influence. And the key word here that I want to point out is potential substance, I guess keywords. Potential substance influence. Nothing that I've seen in any of this indicates substance abuse. That's just putting it out there for the record. Okay. Now, a friend of Mica's at the facility revealed to the police that their purpose for being there was that Mica was trying to seek mental health assistance. They were there for Mica. However, JP tried to thwart these efforts. The friend that was with her disclosed a history of mistreatment by JP towards Mica. And by the way, at this point, this is the first time I had seen or heard this, and again, I'll show you the police reports on this in a second, but depriving her of fundamental needs, like he was abusing her and depriving her of sleep, of food, and he even made it so that she couldn't contact her family and that they couldn't contact her. And apparently this incident was not isolated. Weeks prior, Mica went to Cherokee County in an attempt to leave John Paul again at that point in time and allegedly get mental health treatment. And while she was in that facility, JP supposedly had a mental breakdown and stated he was going to take his own life, which resulted on Myrtle Beach Police Department conducting welfare checks on him. Now, before I go further on this, if you weren't here last night and you missed it, I do want to point something out to you. This was not the first time that JP came on and was going to threaten taking his life. If you guys saw the text yesterday that I had here, this is when he was trying to get Mica to come back. I believe that she was at her sister's house, her family's house, and you can read what this says. My blood is on you. My kids will know. I couldn't take it without you. All you had to do was come home to me, but you wouldn't do it. I'm done. All you had to do was love me enough to drive home to me, but you didn't even care that much about me. I love you. I'm sorry. Tell Sierra I'm sorry. So yeah, I guess he was at her sister's house. And we went through this yesterday. So we have 2 separate events now. One is when she was in a facility, and we have this one where she went to her sister's house, and he's threatening to take his own life. This is middle school level bullshit right here to try to get attention. Like, she's trying to get away from me. I can't stand it. I'm going to put this giant Hail Mary out there that I'm going to take my own life to get her to come back, trying to get her to leave the facility. It's so much with this guy. Anyway, so police were finally able to get Mica away from JP in order to have a conversation with her, speak privately with her. And after that conversation, police were like, yeah, it is necessary for her to undergo psychiatric evaluation at the hospital. And apparently what this did is JP was not happy with the decision that the police made and allowed her to seek treatment and enter the hospital, which I don't know exactly what was going on at this point in time to make her want to go to the hospital and seek treatment, unless it was more basically just to get away from him and knowing that by being in a facility, he couldn't really get to her. And that's the only thing that I can think of other than her actually needing help. But with the abuse and everything going on, it seems like she was, overall coherent and cohesive in her decisions. They spoke to her directly and determined that this was something that needed to happen. Well, again, apparently this elicited a strong reaction from JP, who apparently contacted a certain Lieutenant Wilson, and he told the police of potential repercussions, basically threatening them, and ended up telling them that they're going to be getting a call. So he was not happy with the way that this went down, because that's what he does. He has these blow-ups, then he love bombs, and he has a blow-up, then he love bombs, and he was not happy with the way that this whole thing went, and the fact that Mica had a friend with her trying to help this go, get her out of the situation. And it's just, y'all, it's so much. It's so much. Now, before we get to the surveillance footage, I do want to show y'all something. Before I do, I want to give credit. So this comes from Ellie Investigates. And Ellie Investigates went with Kyler, which Kyler's been on the show a couple times, on TikTok a lot of times. So you guys kind of know what's going on with that. But they went apparently to the place where Mica last ended her life. And this is not a very long video that I'm going to show you, but it's enough that I want you to see kind of that what you can kind of see on this thumbnail right here, how muddy and rainy and wet it is. But we'll just kind of show it to you, and you can kind of see it's very short. So you're looking at water, you're looking at mud, you're looking at swampy type areas. If most women, again, there's exceptions to every rules, but most women, if they're gonna take their own life, it's usually cleaner. It's usually not with a firearm. It's usually not in an area. I mean, look at this. The water, look how high the water is up to the trees. I mean, you can kind of see everything here. But most women, I'll play it again real quick for y'all. So, while I'm talking about it, but most women aren't going to walk 15 minutes to an area that's supposedly off limits to anybody but park rangers to take their own life. It's not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that it's unlikely. It raises some red flags. I just want to point that out. And then I'm kind of all over the place today, I guess. I forgot to show y'all this. So I want to show y'all this real quick. These were the, going back to what we were talking about a second ago. Sorry, I completely forgot that I had these queued up, so that's on me. But this goes back to that incident I was just telling you about where she went to the hospital to try to get treatment, and he shows up, tries to take away. He's not happy about it. And these are basically some screenshots from that. So on the 20th, I'm just going to read it for you, y'all who can't see, or for those of y'all who are listening to it on a podcast later. But basically, on November 28, 2022, a responding officer responded to a call for service at the Waccamaw Mental Health Facility, gives the address in reference to a female locked in the bathroom with an unknown condition. On the scene, Waccamaw Mental Health Facility workers informed officers that the female had exited the bathroom, was sitting in the passenger seat of a burgundy Ram truck in the parking lot with a male who was trying to take her from the scene. Officers located the truck and both occupants. While speaking with the female, later identified as other entity 2, meaning Mica, O2 is Mica, the male, who is JP, identified as other entity 3 in this report, would interrupt her answers, not allow her to speak to officers. WMH workers advised the officer that the female appeared to be extremely weak and that when she was inside the building, and stated that she passed out both in the lobby and the bathroom, and they feared that she was under the influence. The officer was approached by the female identified as other entity 1, which is the person who called it in, and stated her and somebody else. Sorry, this is the person that brought Mica here. Other entity 1 is the person who brought Mica there, and she basically stated that her and Mica drove here separately without. Her and Mica drove there separately without JP, and to get Mica the mental health redacted is what it says, and that this friend stated that JP pulled up and went inside and wouldn't allow Mica to get the help she needed inside, and instead brought her out to his truck and wouldn't let her out. So basically brought her out to the truck in this weakened state, having passed out. She wants to get help, she needs to get help, and he locks her in the truck. He locks her in the truck. Now, the friends further stated that there have been ongoing issues between the group, and just weeks prior, Mica left the area seeking help in Cherokee County in an attempt to leave JP. While away, JP allegedly had a mental breakdown and stated that he was going to take his own life, resulting in Myrtle Beach PD conducting welfare checks on him. The friend also stated that JP has been mentally abusing Mica for an extended period of time by not allowing her to sleep, eat, or contact her family. Due to the unknown circumstances surrounding this incident, officers on the scene separated the parties, which finally allowed Horry County responding officers, basically officers, to speak with Mica alone and determine she needed to go to the hospital. JP was unhappy about being separated and made a call to who he stated was Lieutenant Wilson, and which, by the way, Lieutenant Wilson, in case y'all don't know who Lieutenant Wilson is, and I should have mentioned this in the video that I did on it, but in case you didn't know who Lieutenant Wilson is, JP's head of security at the church was married to Lieutenant Wilson, who was the head of Myrtle Beach Police at that point in time. Okay, that's where he was getting a lot of information. That's how he was able to get through a lot of things, a lot of red tape. She was getting a lot of this information for him. Just so y'all know, that's who we're talking about here. Anyways, so he was unhappy. So he called Lieutenant Wilson and basically said that you're going to be getting a call. And then he walked to the far side of the parking lot away from the incident location. And then the officer helped transport Mica, and all other officers on the scene were cleared. And the friend requested that this incident be documented in a report. Okay? So that was why I wanted to bring this back up to you guys and show it to y'all, because it's pretty important. Now, this guy, between all of his affairs and all the stalking and his actual job, I don't know how he has the ability and time to do everything he does. He must be really great with his time management skills, is all I can figure at this point in time. But it's insane how much he does. And the thing about it is he doesn't want these women. He just doesn't want them to leave him. Like, he didn't want Allie, but he didn't, even though he was having an affair on her with Mica, mind you, he still didn't want her to have him. Or, you know what I'm saying? He didn't want her to leave him. He has to still be the one in control. It's all about control with this guy. Okay? I mean, that's the bottom line with it. So, the next thing I want to talk about and show y'all real quick is sorry, I'm having a train of thought. I was looking at a comment and got distracted. Squirrel. The surveillance footage. And some of this y'all have seen, but I want it kind of all in one place. The only bit of it that I edited was like when it was just a blank scene before she had pulled up or before she was back in the scene, to kind of show where there was nothing else going on, like no trucks going around, things like that. But yeah, so I want to talk, I'll just show it to y'all real quick and we'll just go through these videos. I just think it's important for y'all to see these videos in their entirety, have one place for them to be. And I'll try to talk through them given the situation that we're going through here. This is the first one where she's coming home with food. There's not a whole lot, but you can just kind of get an idea of what she looks like in comparison to other things. So that's the first one. The next one is when she's getting ready to leave.
So cool. So you got necessary endings. Your life of sleeping is over. So when I get into this and I start to look at what the scriptures say, we came across this passage. And here it is. You might remember the song about the birds. Turn to everything. There is this.
Okay, so what I wanted to show on that one, so she was listening to basically a faith-based podcast. I've heard, but not confirmed, that it was called something like Necessary Endings or something along those lines, but it was a faith-based podcast, Christian podcast. You could hear them talking about scriptures and things like that. So I wanted you to hear that. Now, the next ones aren't going to have sound, but we'll kind of talk through them. So let's talk about this. So this is when she's going to the store. There's going to be a couple different angles of this. She's just walking to the store. Now, this does appear to be the same outfit, though, that she was in the pawn shop for, but she goes and grabs a drink. And you can see the timestamp. This is 4:27 at 1:30. Okay, that one's over. And then we'll go to this one here, which shows her, again, same thing where she's checking out with the drink. The person's playing on their phone for a second, so. And I will go ahead and get the other ones queued up. I had too many things too many things pulled up. And then we're going to get into where the truck is and the cars and all that kind of stuff. So she'll show up here in a second. Oh, she's already there, sorry. And they're ringing it up. Looks like it's going through some glass. She hands her card. I mean, nothing too much. I just think it's important to kind of see this because there's so much out there. And I think it's important to see this for those of y'all who haven't seen it yet. But basically, it's just a transaction that's kind of going on. You know, nothing overly exciting. Now, the next thing was this one. So here's she's pulling up to the gas station here. I kind of put these a little bit out of order, but just again wanted y'all to see these. So I know it's kind of quiet right now, but you know, she goes inside. This is kind of a longer one. I'll try to like fast forward a little bit for y'all. She's inside, and she'll eventually come back out, and she'll fill her car up with gas. Now, there was something I found very interesting about this. So here she comes back out to fill her car up with gas, and there's still quite a bit of this video left, right? But the thing is remember, this is a woman that supposedly does not have that much money. Okay, she's buying a expensive gun. She pays off the car. Now, there's been some discrepancies on paying off the car. That could have been JP to really do that because the car, that might have been the car that he had and took, and she's in the Civic. But she's filling this car up. She's getting ready to take her life, right? Supposedly, she's known, she's made the decision that she's going to take her life, but she's filling this car up. And it's not like it's one of those situations where, like, you know, who is she filling it up for, right? Because JP's probably going to take the car. It's a marital asset, right? So why is she filling up the entire car? To me, it seems like you'd put, I mean, I could be wrong. Y'all can drop it in the comments or in the comments on this live or in the comments in the video if you guys, so you're watching it later. But I don't understand why somebody wouldn't put 10, 15, maybe $20 in the car. I mean, this is a Honda. It sips gas, right? Why would you fill up the entire car? Because it's there. I mean, she's letting it go. It's just on like autofill. But she's filling this car up. That car doesn't have a very big tank, and, you know, now she's done. So to me, it just seems like why, you know, it just brings that into question. So unless, again, I'm insane, it's just another one of those like things where you're like, huh, that's kind of interesting. So I'll show you this one. So this is a different one. But there's something I want to show you on this one that's interesting. So this is, I think, still at the gas station. There she comes here, unless I accidentally cut it out. But at some point in this video, and I might have accidentally cut it out, and if so, I'm not smart for doing that. But there was a black F-150 looking truck that turns around about like right in this area right here. It comes and does like a U-turn. So I think it's kind of what we've seen on other videos. It's just strange. Oh, somebody said it was $20 in gas. So what somebody just said in the comments. So there, I think that was the truck right there that just went, I think. But anyways, you wouldn't need that much money to get where she was going. So anyways, this is what's going on. Then she goes, I'll fast forward a little bit more because and then she comes out of the porta potty and she goes back to her car and then ultimately drives off. Mercedes pulls up and kind of figures out. So, and then she goes. So it's all very strange. And it's one of these things where I said, you know, kind of yesterday or on the weekend, you know, when these types of events happen, typically speaking, you know, this case has so many layers. And again, at this point, we've not even gone down the rabbit hole of JP's dad and his son. And I think that might be something that we need to do later this week. to kind of go down and bring y'all into that path, depending on how this week continues to go. Solely for the fact that it just really paints a picture because JP's father acts a certain way. JP exhibits the same qualities, and now his oldest son was arrested in January in November and January for domestic violence and is going through a divorce. And it's all the same types of, the same type of behavior. It's all the same learned behavior. And if you watched, and I'm going to just say this, look, if you did not watch the episode, the show that we did yesterday that went through all of the documents from Allie's divorce, I would encourage you to watch it because it's going to really show you a pattern of what he did back then to her as far as the way that he stalked and the way that he came after her, Allie back then. And it's also going to, I believe, show you how he's progressed, how he's honed his craft, if you will, as far as stalking and everything goes, to the way that he did Mica, and plus the added technology that goes with it. So I think it's important to watch because he's very skilled at stalking people between the trackers and the following. And I mean, he literally moved into the neighborhood where Allie lived while they were going through divorce. And he would text her when she was home, text her when she was leaving, text her when she had visitors, showing basically that he was watching her all the time, shining lasers into the garage, trying to kill a tree, which was the only thing that obstructed the view between his house and her house. It's absolutely mind-boggling, the lengths that this man goes through. Anyways, it's very, very interesting. And people are telling me in the comments that there's a new porta potty video from the side of the convenience store. I'm going to put it up there for those of y'all who want to read it, but I'll read it out loud too. So I have not seen this one yet, so maybe on tomorrow's show I can find it and show it. But the new porta potty video from the side of the convenience store, if you look closely at the guy on his bike, rewind it and observe where he comes from, he seemed to be hiding behind those work trucks. So we might have to take a look at that as well. This guy, bearing in mind too, and I'm going to make sure, JP likes to put, every time he speaks about Mica, he likes to make sure that he mentions her mental health issues, right? The challenges that she has with mental health. So I want to make sure that every time I talk about JP, that I mention the fact that he is a stalker with multiple police reports against him, with 2 separate women who he's been married to, filing very similar reports in the treatment that they endured and the harassment that they endured, and the fact that he is a person of interest in an FBI investigation regarding money coming, for a mission, which I'm sure they'll find even more for that. The other thing that I think that's worth mentioning is somebody emailed me today, so I've not had a chance to fact check this, but it's somebody who claims that they're in the thick of things, and they gave me a couple pieces of information, one that I can share with you, one that I can't, and that's that apparently throughout this entire time, we've been under the understanding and hearing that that JP sold his shares or moved his shares of the Crocodile Rocks piano bar, which is a highly profitable bar. And somebody yesterday said cash only, again, something that I've not confirmed, but possibly a cash only bar in Myrtle Beach into his son's name. Well, I got information today that said that confirmed by the owners. I did not confirm it through the owners, but allegedly confirmed by the owners that's actually not true, and he does still hold his shares in that building for what it's worth. Anyways, guys, there's just so much. I mean, we packed in a lot into this episode. I mean, but there's just so much going on with this. It's mind-boggling. So, that being said, I think that's about what we have for today. I think that we're going to end it here. But again, like I said, if you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Come back here, get notified when we do this. We're going to be doing one of these again tomorrow. If you are watching on TikTok or YouTube and you are interested, on Tuesday nights, I do a sub-only live. That is for TikTok folks. That could be something that happens too here on YouTube as we grow. But just so y'all know, if you want to sub, you can do that, be here. We'll talk more about this and any additional developments that come out. as well as a few other stories of the day. But definitely hit that subscribe button because there is a lot more coming with this Mica case, and there's a lot more news stories that we need to get back into as we talk about all of this. So like I said, thank you guys for hanging out. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. And again, thanks for watching.